Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Rated R Show. Yes, it is episode 177. Should be just about the 11th of September. And this time, it's a special episode. Now, I say that every single week. But this time it's super special, not just because we have an awesome guest, but because people who are catching this over on the YouTubes and the Facebooks are getting this ugly mug in their face. Yes, we're actually streaming video with this one. So for people over on the podcast, apologies you don't get to see us. I'm not sure I should apologize, but congratulate you for that. But we'll do our best to talk about what's going on and not just assume that you can see it. So it's a bit of an experiment that is the first one we're releasing of these. And if it fails miserably, just let us know. But here to help me in one of... I don't know which corner he's in. One of the other corners there should be Drac, my good friend. My brother from another continent.
That doesn't rhyme.
Shush.
Hello. Yeah, I'd say if this fails miserably, blame G.
What?
But yes, today we are here to talk to Mike Paixão. I hope I got that right. I probably butchered it. From Main Assembly.
Yes,
you mean from Bad Yolk?
And so I am Mike Paixão from Bad Yolk Games, and going to be presenting kind of what we've been working on, a little bit about the company, and what Main Assembly is a little bit more into detail. So,
well, welcome,
not sure where
Mike.
to go from here. This is all new territory for me.
Yeah, we kind of just figured let's all, go into the deep end, right? Let's see if we can do this thing.
All right.
Typically, what we'll do is we'll kind of jump off with some of the human interest stuff, get to know you a little bit, get to know, the development team, and then work our way from there into more details about the game itself.
Okay. I'm just putting a pretty thing on screen.
Oh, he's cute.
Oh, and he even smiled.
We heard you. Are we talking about Mike or the thing on the screen?
Both.
Okay.
All right.
So I guess starting out, Bad Yolk, where in the world are you guys based at?
Yeah, so we are a small little studio in a town about 40 minutes away from Stockholm called Uppsala. We founded the studio actually next month. We'll make 2 years that we've been around working on our game. And we started basically all ex-AAA developers. We kind of wanted a little bit of change, so we decided to, let's give it a shot. Let's try to do our own thing and make our own game. So we left... sorry.
We'll fix it in post.
Oh, good. And woosah. No, sorry. So we decided to leave the company and kind of try our own thing. So we founded Bad Yolk Games and started with kind of our first project, which is Main Assembly, where we kind of move away from all our AAA and do something a little smaller and more indie. We really wanted to build a foundation for our company so that we can move on to make a larger game later. And so Main Assembly is a crafting game, unlike others that are out there. This one doesn't have block-based building. We focused more on freeform crafting. But we'll get back to that after, because I realized I just sidetracked myself from talking about the studio.
That's okay.
So... some of the important things we did when we were founding is we saw kind of the trends in the games industry, especially in the AAA, that there's a lot of overtime, a lot of crunch, and a lot of people are getting, burned out from all these excessive hours. We want something long-term. So when we founded the company, we made sure that employee health, employee happiness, and then the project would be our priorities in that order. And this has kind of been our founding pillars, and we've been following it ever since. And we've been doing even shorter work days, and we've created everything for the game, everything that I'll be showing. Unfortunately, for the ones listening, you'll have to go look up the video. But everything we've shown about the game, it was all done within that 2-year span.
Okay, so first question, if I may. You just said you focused on employee well-being, right?
Yes.
But you found it in Sweden, where beers are like, 5-6 euros for a small beer?
Give or take, unless you want a good beer.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Even though it has that, there's a lot of this in AAA that you have this kind of, oh, well, if you don't want to do it, then we could find someone else to replace you mentality in a lot of places. So there's always that kind of stress. Even if it's not direct, it's like, well, maybe you should just, I'll do a little extra, and then you're ending up doing 10, 12-hour days. So even at that level, it's already different to try and do less hours. Another thing we did is in Sweden, when you have a sick day, there's a thing called a qualifying day. I believe it's Karlensdag, and now all the Swedes will be mad at me too. And your first day of being sick, you don't get your pay. And then after that, you get a pay after that. So we got rid of that when we founded the studio. And happy to report, in 2019, the government abolished the day. So now everyone has that. So they caught up.
That's cool.
But those kind of changes that we made just at the base level of when we start planning things and when we start working, we always try to aim for planning things that can be done with the workforce we have and the amount of time we have.
That's a good way of approaching it.
One thing I just kind of wanted to point out, and I know the folks that are on the podcast won't be able to see this, but I did want to kind of emphasize this. You're saying, you focused on, the well-being of the employees, and yet the game itself still looks, it's very nice looking. It looks very polished. So, visually, it's still a very nice looking game, and you've managed to do that while still taking those things into account.
Exactly. And it is a challenge because there are a lot of different ways you have to approach things. So when it comes to, okay, what if you don't have enough time for something? Well, then we have to make sure to go in and take something out. So we have to adjust our schedule to make sure we have enough time to complete the tasks so that we don't end up in a situation where, now we have to work extra hours. So...
Okay, so there we're getting a little bit into to some future questions about the, how do you get ideas for what to put into the game? But we'll come back to those bits. But I must commend you on the idea of making sure that there's a healthy work-life relationship, that people can actually have a private life and they don't get worked half to death, because we're seeing that a lot these days, and that's been quite a bit of topic.
It's interesting you mentioned that. So one of the things we actually do is we encourage people to do side projects and things that are not at the office, so that, you expand your horizons, you learn new skills. So we're always actually encouraging people to, go out and do other things as well in their spare time.
Oh, nice. So it was fully your spare time that you were at Gamescom.
Yeah. No,
Three
but that
fun
was
days.
That was an interesting experience, actually. That's for me and Joel, my co-founder, who was also there with me. We had never actually been to an event before. We were usually stuck in an office.
Gamescom.
No, we were usually stuck in an office at previous studios, and it was always but if something breaks, who's gonna fix it? We come from a background as technical artists, which means we know a bunch of stuff in every category, and when things break, people will come to us first. Which is a clever segue into the founders' backgrounds of technical art. So one of the things that we specialized in was actually, pipeline and workflow. So we would, work on things that smaller teams can make more content, was kind of our specialty. And from that, we then founded a studio with that mentality right from the beginning as well. So, working smarter instead of working harder, which is a catchphrase that you hear all the time in the industry. So I avoid using it as much as possible.
It always brings up, have you seen that picture where a bunch of people are pushing like square pieces of rock and somebody carved it spherical? And then it says, work smarter, not harder.
Well, I'm sorry, but I have to do a visual on that one. I'm just going to make a square real quick in the background here as we continue.
So about how big is the development team that's been working on Main Assembly?
So right now we're about 10 ex-AAA devs and 1 business developer, so we're 11 total. That is not a square. It's going to be growing, but only once we have released the project and we start to get, kind of that stable company back end. We want to release the game so that we can continue to develop and move forward with the studio.
Well, should we slowly get into what the game actually is? Because I guess on the YouTube, we're now seeing you drive around with square wheels in a vehicle.
I mean, we can hop in. We can also segue back and forth if there's other questions that come up about the studio and if we remember things along the way.
Oh, I said there'll be a few that we'll need to get back to, but first we need to kind of get into what is the game, because we've just, again, on the YouTube, seen you take a vehicle and build it and make some really nice little vehicle out of, I'd almost say voxels or something similar.
It's actually completely done with mesh and geometry. So what you're seeing on the screen is all actual polygons that get made.
Okay, so you're taking polygons, bending, deforming them into objects, and that basically becomes your vehicle. And
exactly.
You put in a driver's seat and then build around that.
Exactly. So one of the cool things about it is that once you kind of start building and you get used to the controls and you start to feel the 3D space, then you can really start to play around with things that weren't possible before in a lot of crafting games. The other thing to remember, though, is what you use as a material, for example, will also have an impact. So if I start to change a bunch of plates to steel, they're going to be a lot heavier. And so they'll weigh more and they'll change your center of mass. So there's a lot to think about in the physics simulation. So if I replay this again and I try to take a jump, I'm going to be a lot heavier and I'll start breaking things.
But at its core, it's build a vehicle and race it or drive it or fly it or whichever around obstacle courses, one guess, or...
So the main part of the game, there's going to be two sections. There's going to be the challenges where you'll have tasks to accomplish. So for example, that was a driving map where you'd have to go from point A to point B. There's extra objectives to clear. So there'll be multiple playthroughs where you try and do something like, say, no wheels or no motors. Just different kinds of things. And then we also have the Sandbox Mode where you can hop in and invite your friends to play with you.
And with the challenges mode, are you guys going to have some kind of like leaderboard or a way of comparing scores for folks on?
So for the first early access release coming later, Q4, is going to be mostly star based. So you'll earn stars and you'll have a time that you took to complete it. And then looking forward, we'll make plans and see if the community wants to have things like leaderboards and whatnot. Then we'll put more focus on actually having kind of more shared statistics and things like that. It's going to be a lot of our development post early access is going to be what the community is after. So we're going to be looking to expand and really take their feedback when it comes to these things.
That's something that still I find amazing. I know a lot of people nowadays are just used to it, but when I think about how video games used to be made and how you would get information about video games compared to today, where you actually get a chance to interact with the developers making the games, and even in some cases, like what you're talking about, have a say in the things that show up in those games, is that's a really cool turn of events.
So yeah, one of the things that we did is that our game is broken kind of into different chunks that we can make independently of each other. So that once we get to early access, we're going to show our entire, here's our plan for early access, and people can, comment. You can join our Discord and, actually ask the devs directly. That's kind of, we're becoming available so that people can interact with us, and we want to know what people are doing. We want to see the crazy things they're going to build. Or in this case, I'm destroying something on video so that to demonstrate kind of the destruction system we've implemented, which is all rigid body physics, but we have kind of soft body deformation. So I have metal plates that are kind of contorting and bending and staying together when they're more rigid and have more reinforcement, but then smaller parts just kind of break off, and I'm abandoning it now. They're going to kind of break off into smaller pieces, and this is kind of where the multiplayer in the sandbox will come in. And you'll start to see people that will try and, smack each other around, we're hoping, or not, or help each other. And just kind of, it's a sandbox. It's meant to be creative so that we can just have all kinds of players doing all kinds of things.
If everything is more or less freeform and we don't have predefined objects, except we saw a seat and we saw wheels, can you build like a flail or a big hammer onto your vehicle, or are you looking to add some kind of weaponry, or is it that too violent?
So our game is innocent. The robots are just meant to help humanity. But, you know, a hammer is used to also build a house, say. And we're going to have some kind of weaponry, but it's not something that's going to be like, oh, this is meant for violence. It's just, you know, a hammer. Good for removing debris from your path and building a house for humans. It's lawnmower blades for cutting grass. We're going to have everything that's kind of in the game now is, you know, we have the basic servos, pistons, hinges. These are all things that we're going to ship with the game. And then as we go, we have a lot of ideas for new parts. We'll also have, you know, again, community feedback to really get ideas as well. And we're just going to keep adding things as the game goes on and keep refining during the early access process. So you said a flail. I wonder if I could do a flail.
Well, do you have anything like chains?
Well, not necessarily, but if you take a couple of motors that are just kind of free spinning around, you technically could make a chain-like device, which I've created once upon a time. So I'm going to try and recreate that as I answer more questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I know you said that this is more of a peaceful experience, but I thought I saw, at least on one of the videos on Steam, where it looked like one of your little AI was driving around a tank. So I kind of suspect, whether intentionally or otherwise, there are going to be players that are going to make some kind of multiplayer map where there can be combat involved, maybe even like Robot Wars type stuff.
So our initial release is going to have kind of the sandbox and challenges, but we're hoping that players will then make kind of their own self-policed mini games and things like that. And then if there's interesting ones that they would like support for, then we can, you know, go in and add like, you know, an arena or something. But it's really going to be based on the feedback we get for the initial players.
So I'd be curious, you said that your background was technical artist, was that the term?
Yeah.
So you have some artistic skills, I would assume, some visual, graphical skills.
It's technically art. It's really, I wouldn't judge my skills too highly on the visual side of things.
But it seems like something that could come in handy for this game. What other skills should we sort of consider having? Do we need to know programming, physics? I mean, I can KSP with some of the better ones, but that doesn't mean I'm good at physics.
So our goal for this is that anyone can just pick it up and play it. So we're not trying to, you don't have to know programming. We're going to be teaching players kind of how to do things. And we're doing it on an approach of what you see and what you expect to happen is kind of what should happen. So you don't have to be an expert in quantum physics to really make the best bot. As you can see, my flail bot here is, well, flailing.
Yeah, it's also flailing.
And when it comes to programming, we've also approached it more from like what audio designers use for their software. It's a visual-based programming language that goes, you know, -1 to 1, and everything is driven by like waves. So when you start to work on more advanced creations, so we have a simple seat and an advanced seat. The simple seat just gives you math and button inputs. And then the advanced seat will give you a little bit extra. If I just throw one on here, you'll get a lot more options. So now I'm showing like you have clamping, you have math, you have miscellaneous, where you can actually find an actual wave you can control, or straight out logic gates. So we're using this as an approach where we teach the player by automatically programming the simpler bots, by trying to assume like if you have 2 wheels in the front, 2 wheels in the back, and they have steering, it'll kind of hook up all your controls for you, so you don't even have to go into programming. But then when you want to dive deeper, then you start to get more control, so you can start to, you know, refine how things happen. You can put logic in, you can have sensors that trigger things.
Or maybe in the case of the 2 flails you had set up there, time them so that they don't bang into each other.
That could be an option, yes. So if I took the motors that I'm spinning, which is one of these here, yeah, I could then check what the current angle is on it and then just tell it to, you know, offset and then only move it when it's not one on top of the other. Or I
That's
could
cool.
have taken more than 3 seconds to build it. That might have helped too.
Well, no. It wasn't meant as a criticism. Just as thinking that would be good as an option, especially if you start to build things like helicopters with multiple rotors and things like that.
Yeah. It's one of those things where we're just trying to give players the tools to create all kinds of things. I seem to have gotten myself stuck. But
Well,
the drone is still happy.
It's not called Jebediah, right?
I don't think I've named the drone.
Oh. It's just, no matter how bad you fly, Jebediah always smiles.
So now you mentioned Gamescom. Were you guys allowing folks to sit down and actually play the game at Gamescom, or was it more just a demo?
Sadly, because of the time constraints at Gamescom, it was more just us demoing the game, or in the case, getting completely off the rails.
I sabotaged it. You could see poor Joel he'd prepared. We start here, we go through these things, and we end there. He was on point from the beginning until I started opening my face hole. It didn't go well after that.
Yeah, so the thing is, like, once we have had playtesters kind of coming in and trying out the game, and they've been able to create things, and we have a new tutorial system we've started to implement as well to kind of get players familiar with the build system and all those things that go with it. And as we get closer to early access, we're just refining all those systems now. I'm just creating a ramp so I can demonstrate how the physics behave when... because it's not just limited to bots. You can actually just create little fun things that you can leave lying around the map.
So you could go in and create an entire racetrack for people to race around in.
Not quite yet, but I'm creating just a smaller object that I can use. So our future plans for the game, though, do involve, being able to create, with the crafting system, create things that are in the world, not just on a bot. But we decided that since we're a small team, we're going to focus on what we can deliver with the team size we are.
Okay. Makes sense.
So that's kind of where we focused our attention on just, bot-sized creations to start. And then as we get further on, we're going to be looking at adding, the ability to create world objects that you can also program and save out and send to your friends. So here's an example of a curved surface actually has the full collision of a curved surface.
Well, the vehicle does seem to be struggling a little bit.
Yeah. I believe that's my lack of driving skill.
Well, you can always compensate by turning on the rockets, right?
Oh, there's always rockets.
Yeah.
It's the best solution, if ever there's one.
Well, it's at least the Jeremy Clarkson solution.
Exactly. But yeah, this is...
And the sandbox we're in looks like we're out in the salt flats in Utah or something.
Yeah. So now I could go and do what we did at Gamescom, where we just go off script. Not that we had a script for this, but I can show you kind of another level we started throwing together as well. It's not as pretty, so you'll have to forgive the visuals, but just to give an idea of where other things we're also planning to do is, more of an open landscape with things that are interactable. So, for example, there's a ski jump over there. There's things to explore, places to see. And then go ahead, sorry.
No, it's just, I don't know if it was in Joel's script for Gamescom, but I definitely didn't see this.
We may or may not have started it after Gamescom.
Ooh, in that case, you've been quick, because Gamescom was, just a couple
Wasn't
of days
that
ago.
Ages ago?
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's at least 3 games conventions since, so...
Wait, I know about PAX. What was the next one after that?
Well, literally the Saturday, Sunday, Monday was Insomnia.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and there was one more in between as well. There's a reason we don't do any work, really. We don't talk to anybody in July, because it's game conventions every single week. August, not much better. And is it now, or just about now, there's TGS?
Yeah, we actually
July
went
through
to...
September is rough.
We actually went to a small event in Stockholm, though, called the Indie Game Dungeon, where we actually let people play the game.
know a few people that helps run that thing.
Okay. So we were there, and I decided to just grab random people from the audience and give them a crash course on how to build. And they started to create interesting things, and they were able to craft even with a 5-minute tutorial from me. So it was nice to see.
That seems like a success, I would say.
Someone got really, really into the programming. Oh, I'm now just tumbling down a hill gracefully.
Well, we see some breakage. Is there some deformation as well?
I don't know if I hit hard enough to actually deform things, but see, this is why jets are used everywhere by everyone. You can still move.
Now,
while completely upside down.
If you just put 2 wheels on the roof as well, or 4 wheels on the roof, you'd be driving.
That could be
That would
arranged.
just make the wheels bigger so that they are large enough, regardless of whether you're upside down or not.
That's just such an American solution.
Why use extra wheels? Just make them bigger.
So
I'm
I'm
European,
being-
add more. Not add bigger, add more.
So one of the things I'm doing right now is I'm actually adding reinforcement, since the more connections and structural integrity you give something, the stronger it actually is.
Oh, okay, cool.
When in doubt, add more struts.
Something along those lines. And these lines. And these lines. Sorry, I couldn't resist the pun. It's actually...
with the... I was just going to point out that with the whole construction system there, as you're building things and adding things, it brings up a nice grid for you.
Yeah, which is... so the crafting... I've done something horrible. The crafting plane is based on where you're looking. So if you look directly from the side, you get a side view, and then as the camera turns, it'll snap to a different plane. So we're trying to help figure out where the players want to put something to minimize having to move things freely in 3D space. And then we'll have an option later to actually just turn it off, so you could just place things anywhere.
Okay.
Sorry for asking, but how far are you from basically having made your own modeler? Like, why use Blender if we can use yours?
We've limited what you can do with our modeler in a sense, though. So it's not that it can do everything. It's focused on building and crafting in our game.
Oh yeah, it's nice and simple, but I'm guessing if somebody needs to do like mock-ups, it seems like it would almost be doable.
Well, it's similar with the programming. Say you program a bot with servos and things like that. In theory, you could take the same logic you programmed and apply it to real-world robotics. And for the modeling part, I haven't really explored that. There you go. I fixed it.
So you haven't tried exporting it? Okay.
No, right now we're focusing on just releasing our game and trying to make it as fun as possible for players.
Yeah.
I can't flip over now.
You dropped a wheel.
Lost a wheel.
And another one. Yeah, at this point you need to use the ones that you just added to the roof, because... Sorry for the people who don't get to see this. It looks funny.
I'm basically driving around attempting to flip over, and for some reason now that I want to flip over, I can't. There we go. There we go. Made it.
So on the screen, I'm seeing something that, at least in in Space Engineers, annoys the heck out of me, and that is that there's no damage from engines. You literally have rocket engines, I assume it is, pointing at your rear wheels, and no damage.
So currently we only have the impact type damage, and then in later updates, like I mentioned in those things we'll include after releases, other damage types as well.
Other damage types, okay.
So, potentially it could be heat and electricity and all these other things. We haven't quite set everything in stone yet, so it's going to be, let's play the game, get it into players' hands, and see kind of what people want. Also
simply what makes sense within the world.
Exactly. We do want the game to be approachable by people so that it's, quick to get into, and then you can just play around and have fun, even if you're not experienced as, say, a modeler, that you can still create things without that experience.
Yeah, because that was a little bit why I was curious about the idea of taking something and exporting it. So, people who are not good at Blender, etc., can do mock-ups in this and then work on them somewhere else. Because it looks really easy to work with. It looks like you should be able to sit down and, 5 minutes in, you have something awesome.
Those are for Drac.
Okay.
The larger wheels.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say, Mike, you make this look really easy, but I wonder. You said the guys sitting there, even within 5 minutes, were able to construct stuff. How complicated were they getting with it, or was it pretty straightforward? Or
Well, I can only describe it because it was on another machine, so I don't actually have the save files with me. But what ended up happening is some people create things like they created a simple plane that would flap around with a few jets to help propel it, and was able to steer with a method that I didn't even expect to work, where they just had two servos with jets mounted on top, and it was able to steer somehow. I didn't even realize it would work. So we're letting a lot of stuff happen. Right now I have the wheels hitting each other, so they're actually helping each other, I think.
You almost got it flipped over.
Oh, you see, I have one wheel that just kind of bursted. So we have different damage states as well in the game. So as you're losing things, they might not fall off right away. They actually might stay alive, but they'll be terrible. Like, for example, that wheel that's missing a tire is not great.
Well, there it goes. Yeah, the way these things get damaged is actually pretty funny just to sit and watch.
But look, the drone is always smiling and happy. That's what's
just
important.
here to help. He's here to help.
Well, I believe he seems to be indestructible, so I think that if I was indestructible, I'd just be having fun with this too.
It's a great motto to live by. But another thing that's I do like to share about our company, though, is that our name is actually a Swinglish pun. So the way that Swedish people pronounce their J's sounds like a Y. So at the end of the day, we're just a Bad Yolk.
That explains why G, when he was talking about meeting up with you guys at Gamescom, was saying Bad Joke. But I'm looking at it and it's Bad Yolk, and I'm like, I thought maybe it was just a pronunciation thing or something. I didn't realize.
It was intentionally done that way.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Now, apparently, I'm breakdancing somehow, which I'm trying to flip on my roof, and it just will not work anymore.
I'm thinking back old stunts in cars for movies, where they drive along and the car has to flip over. If you've seen those, it was common in 60s, 70s, 80s movies.
Yeah.
Of certain genres. They would use a piston, hammer down, and flip it over. I'm wondering if you could build the same in this.
Ooh, we're close now. We're getting closer. No.
Well,
now you're on your front. Okay.
That in theory could work. But yeah.
Given how you were just parked and people again couldn't see it, but you were on the nose of the vehicle pointing downwards and turning on your little rockets. Are there any deformation of the ground, i.e. could you start digging in that scenario?
Sadly, in our game, we're not doing any voxel terrain, but if enough people say, hey, that sounds like a great idea, then we'll have to take a look and see just how much it would be to put in and if it's doable. But currently, the ground is fixed, and just your bot gets destroyed.
Yeah. But I guess
that was something I noticed when you had the square wheels on the car earlier, was that it wasn't taking chunks out of the ground.
Oh, I think we've also joked about having grass that you can cut with the lawnmower blades as well.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah, because if you don't want to work your garden, you can go and play main assembly and do some gardening.
Well,
not yet, but maybe one day.
Maybe one day.
And you can have like little gems or coins come popping out of the grass.
Are you going to say waves of zombies next?
You must have seen some of Drax's live streams, yeah.
So yeah, another cool thing is like when you start playing with things like sensors in our game, and then you can tie a sensor into a CPU, which is essentially the same as a chair, except it doesn't have any inputs. And you can then have things trigger based on the sensors. So you can essentially program a robot that moves itself. So if I put this over here, and now I go into this one. So I'm going into the CPU that has no programming. I can actually start to find the things I just added and tie it up and tie it into the sensors. So whenever it finds something, it will now come back and the pistons should go out. And I'll just do this. There. Now only the one side will go out. So I seem to have broken my other programming. This was a terrible example.
And here's how you program things.
So here's the thing. We're in a stage where we're going to be fixing all these things, and we just want to be very open with our player base. So we're showing everything, including our warts, as they say. And then we're working to get these ready for early access later this year. But in the meantime, if you have more questions.
Well, how's the multiplayer setup going to be different? You said with the solo, there's like challenges and stuff like that you can go through, but multiplayer, like how far into that are you guys?
So we're just implementing the Steam backend now, so that we have some multiplayer. Apparently, earlier today, the team was actually playing from home, from what I was hearing, and it's so far so good. You can just go into Sandbox and build bots with friends. Okay,
so those same challenge mode things, they're not necessarily... Are you planning to implement those as challenges that you can each do together or against each other in competitive, or no?
So we talked about maybe looking at doing challenges that are more multiplayer, so you each have your own kind of path to go through, and then it would be against two people in the same map. But then for the initial release, it'll just be single player focused.
Okay, makes sense.
So on the screen right now, I'm just showing like a sensor that's triggering pistons on the sides when it sees something. Just to show like I'm not touching the pistons, but they're moving on their own based on how close I'm getting.
But it's within, what, a meter or so?
It's actually something I can change. So if I just put them a little bit further out. So if I edit these, I can actually set the distance it's looking for.
Okay.
So now it'll start from much farther away. So with this kind of stuff, you can actually then plug in like a sensor that checks for a wall, and then you can make it override steering input to dodge a wall in front of you. So there's all kinds of possibilities that you can do already in the game. Another example I can actually show and talk about. Again, I apologize to the folks on podcast. Go check out the video. Is that we also have aerodynamics in the game. So things like plates and the frames and plate parts all kind of generate wind resistance and lift. So here I'm showing a plane, and the only thing that moves this plane is the 4 jet engines that are included. So if I take off right now, I'm actually flying in the air using the frames that I built. And when I say I mean one of our artists, because all of my stuff never looks this pretty.
But again, I think I mentioned this at Gamescom because I saw this one there. You have more than enough thrust to keep airborne just from thrust. So how good does it float?
Like a leaf
straight
on
down.
The wind. So that's where another update later will come, where we'll do better aerodynamics. For now, it's just a simple version, and we're planning to do an overhaul at a future time where you can actually glide. But for now, it has resistance and it floats.
Yeah. Gently.
But there's another feature that this particular plane has, which is using programming and a gyroscope. So there's a ball thing sitting on there. And if I just put the plane in a weird position and let go of the controls, it will automatically self-right itself using all in-game programming.
Ooh. Oh, cool.
Now this is the part where the ones who can actually see what's about to happen are going to get a little scared. It's not as scary as it looks. So if I go back into the programming now, it's a lot of stuff just kind of on the screen. But the thing that happens is that you start by going, oh, I do my basic controls, and then you start adding things, and then you start adding things, and then it starts to grow in complexity as you go. So here we have a gyroscope coming in, some math going on it, and then it mixes that math with the player's input. So if a player has any controls, it kills the automatic version, and then it controls the tail fins. The ailerons, I believe the correct term. So that's the kind of thing you can start to scale in complexity when you're when you're playing the game. And you're learning how to actually program at the same time.
There's some educational value in that system.
Exactly. It's a nice little bonus. So if you have, say, you want to teach your kid how to program, they're at a young age, but they're playing video games, then something like this can be used to actually kind of introduce them while still in the context of having fun.
Yeah, it made me wonder when you were talking about that almost if you confer, or if you guys have considered it at all, that schools may use stuff like main assembly in a similar fashion to some schools have been using Minecraft to teach kids, creativity and programming and things like that. Well, maybe not so much programming, but, building different things.
Exactly. And we didn't design the game around that, but it's something that's definitely something I've thought about. And it would be really cool to see it actually get into schools and be used as a tool for teaching. We actually did so at Gamescom, we actually had some teachers who were journalists and teachers, and they actually said they'd be really interested in, showing this to their students.
Oh, that's cool.
I think that's also one of my intents with this game. Show it to my kids. Because I think this would be a good learning tool for, basic logics and how things react.
Another little extra on our build system is that we actually have object instancing. So if I delete one plate on this shape, it's actually copy pasted. It was a copy pasted object all the way down. So they all follow and they all match, even though I'm just editing the one of them.
Okay. It kind of allows you to see the guts inside too.
So each one of these it's a giant snake. And it's being moved by a wave in the programming, and then it just turns a servo, and it delays, and it turns the next one, and it just keeps doing that all the way down the chain. And then with a little bit of math, we can actually control where it's going with the steering keys.
It's pretty cute. So when you want to turn, you add some more twisting in one direction than the other.
Exactly. It's just moving. So here we have the wave. And then it's multiplying it either up or down. I don't know if you can see the wave.
We can't. It's your face is covering it.
You'll have to take my word for it. But so
that's a wave input.
So we have a wave over here, and then there's a debug out display that's actually showing under my face here, which is showing what it's currently doing to try and help help players get around it, get around the visual idea of what's happening with their code.
For the folks on the video, you could use your hands to show them what the wavelength looks like.
Or I'll apologize in advance to the editor as I've moved my face.
You're probably just hiding underneath one of us now.
Probably, but it's temporary, so just kind of give an idea. This is kind of the debug for the wave, and I can change the size of the wave and just adjust the settings on it. So this is the programming is all from -1 to 1. You can put other numbers, so then it's just multiplying. So let's say the input here, if I put it to on, it's multiplying that, and then it comes into another one. It adds it together. So there's just a bunch of math being done to kind of make it move over. So here's when the A key is being pressed, and then if I turn this off again, and I show it again, now it's back within its confines.
Yeah, you had like a nice, consistent waveform. I think I would probably spend too much time with this trying to see just how fast I could make things go before they would break. Get that wave jumping back and forth as quickly as possible until it breaks the car.
What you do is you start doing stuff like this. So then you have like a... this shouldn't drive forward, but I can't say for sure. Now the wave is just being skewed and broken, and you see it just jittering, and just it's not quite working anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of fun you can have with the programming.
It seems like, a useful programming tool. It's simple. It's completely visual. I am assuming, and I know the answer to this one, but I'm going to ask anyway, that you can't nest boxes within boxes.
Ah, but you can. It's currently not in the build, but we have implemented a system where you can have one programming kind of chunk in a CPU and then have it output to another one, and then you can do a bunch of math in one, output it to another. Say you have a controller that you have all your wheels on. But there's a risk involved with this, because in multiplayer, if it gets knocked off, well, now you lose access to it. So it's something that you can use for making a fair fight where you have a weak point that's on your bot.
And it doesn't have to be right now, but at some point you're going to have to show us that spider-looking vehicle.
Oh, I will get to that in just want to show an example of this is a logistics map where in the early stages you're just lifting pallets. Very straightforward, very easy. The other thing we're going to do is have example bots kind of built for players that are not quite perfect and a little tricky to control, and that they can go in and then fix things. Okay, you didn't see that. That dummy is fine. He did not just get smacked around by a bunch of boxes. There we go. Exactly what I was trying to do. Perfect. 2 points. So our goal really is that players can approach things and solve problems from many different angles. So if they want to, they can just smack the boxes and hope they land in the container, and that's good enough. As long as the boxes are in the container in this map, the game is happy. So we don't want to ever limit players on how they can solve puzzles. So for example, earlier when I built square wheels, I could drive, I can complete the map. It's accomplishing the goal.
I like those little explosions when you hit a piece of wood against a piece of metal.
It's perfectly normal when you have a bunch of drone AIs flying around.
Okay.
I have no answer to that, so I'm just trying to make something up.
I would have said the pellets were metal. They're just, they look like Euro pellets.
Alright, you want to see the spider.
I just wanted to see how the thing moved, because I figure that thing has just got to be... There's got to be a crazy amount of programming in that thing.
It's a six-legged spider bot from the looks of things, with lots of small servos.
So I'll start by saying that this was made in about 2 hours in one afternoon. Fully programmed, fully modeled. Again, we have the instancing, which makes it a lot faster. And the programming as well. So it can turn, it can fall on its butt. And this is, again, it was all created in our game. There's no cheating involved, no dev hacks.
And there is the creepy leg movement.
Yeah. So this one was done in, it was all done in one graph, but it's actually just a bunch of animations that are set in the sequencer. So it plays a sequence on opposite sets of legs, does a little bit of math to blend it together. So again, it looks complicated at first glance, but when you start to dig into it, it's just a lot of repetition. So this is what's really making it move, is like these kind of floating points here. By the way, should I put my face back to the top corner to annoy the editor some more?
I'll put it in another corner. Bam will love you.
No, I'll go right back to where I was. I'll be kind.
This is reminding me a little bit of when I used to do stuff with databases and relating the tables and whatnot, and the spider work that could turn into.
Exactly. It's like you start out very simple, and then by the end of it, you look back and you go, "What have I done?"
Yeah.
And this will also get easier once we have like I mentioned, those in and outputs. You can then have each leg have its own logic, and then just a trigger telling it when it should move and where. Should I try to get a box?
I know I keep mentioning various games. You're making me think a little bit of Nimbatus, if people haven't tried it. Small drone game. You build drones and you either fly them or you set them in combat with each other. But that one's 2D. I'd love to see this, a map where everybody loads in their own drone and then let go, hands off, and let the drones fight each other.
Yeah, one of the kind of challenge packs I started designing, it's not going to be on early access, but very soon after, we're looking at adding an automation pack, so that you actually the goal is to actually create something that completes a task on its own.
Do you have a way to apply different, I'm trying to think of how to phrase it, maybe statuses, say, or different material types to these things. So like, for instance, with the tires, with the rubber, maybe they bounce, and then with this, it looks to be more like it could maybe be some kind of metal leg.
But you want a rubber foot on it, perhaps?
Well, no, but I'm wondering, can you do something like make the leg sticky so you can climb up a wall?
Right now we don't have anything like for kind of changing that drastic a property. We really have like steel, aluminum, plastic, carbon fiber. Aerogel is the one that's more likely to be lighter and float more. Plexiglass. So they all have different properties, but we don't have anything set in stone for like, oh, this is like a sticky foot type material. But it could be in a parts list that we add later.
Yeah, I was thinking it might be fun with things like, if you're designing a racetrack and you want to put oil slicks down, and maybe it reacts, to cause them to slide out for a certain distance or something like that. And then in the instance of the spider here, giving it the ability to climb up a wall.
Yeah, for early access release, we're going to have, we actually put a racetrack in one of our maps so you can kind of drive around it. It's actually based off of a go-kart track in Uppsala. And for creating world objects, that'll come much later in early access, because we want to make sure that we get all the bot creation stuff down and working really well, so that you can share your creations with your friends. You can you'll be able to send files to each other on Steam Workshop, and then long term, that's when we'll start adding more kind of, okay, now can we do a world and save out a world and send that as well.
That answers one of the other questions I wanted to ask, is how you were going to have folks sharing things out, whether or not it was going to be Steam Workshop or something else. Yeah,
we're going to start with the Steam Workshop, and then if we start expanding to other stores, then we'll start to implement a backend that we can still share everything with everyone who owns the game, regardless of the platform.
Cool.
But it's all about stages, and again, that working for the size of the team we are, we always try to aim for what we work on, that it's doable by our team.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm going to say the spider is not good at moving boxes.
No, but you could add a forklift to the front that would make it look like some kind of...
Yeah, but then you have to have it tiltable. So it tilts down a little bit and then up and grab things. Yeah.
I'm not sure the weight distribution on that would work really well, though.
Oh, shush.
Oh, well, there you go. You're building the abdomen, too.
This is going to break horribly, I should mention.
Isn't that part of the fun of playing a game like this, though, is just seeing how you can break things?
Well, slightly different topic, because you already mentioned, early access, etc. When is early access? When do we get to play?
So the current schedule for early access is Q4 this year. So in the near future.
Okay, so no fixed date yet.
Exactly. We're not 100% sure, so we didn't want to get people excited and then tell them, okay, we've moved it now. So we're waiting till we have everything in place before we announce the official date.
Well, I'm already excited. Get it out. Come on.
Well, there's two things you can do for now. One is you can wishlist us on Steam, and
done that.
You can also join our Discord.
Done that. Come on.
That's true. You have done that. But I'm talking to the viewers and the listeners.
Yes, people, head over to the Steam. There should be a link somewhere in the description. Mike is doing something perverted with a forklift now. It goes up and down.
I may or may not have added a forklift onto the front of a spider, and it turns out a spider is not really designed to handle a forklift.
Yeah. So anyways, head over to the Steam and wishlist it. There will also be a link to the Discord. Go in there and say Mike already promised you the moment you wishlist, you can get a copy of the game.
That is not what I said. And this better not be edited out.
No, Q4. And for people who can't count, we're currently in Q3.
So sometime between October and December. This year.
October and end of December, or are you saying it won't be...
It will be the end of the year. And then our full release is actually planned for Q4 in 2020 as well.
So about a year's early access.
Yeah. So if you want to get your input in, you want to be part of the community where lately they've been asking me to make Reliant Robin helicopters. And you know, of course, I attempt to make Reliant Robin helicopters, which almost flew. You can be part of that community and come join in the fun.
And the best way for folks to interact is at Steam or Discord?
We're mostly active on Discord, and we're still trying to build up our Steam and get familiar with it. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, no, but with regards to that, I saw that, you guys are releasing on Windows, so are you looking at other platforms in the future as far as Mac, Linux, or other storefronts, consoles even?
So, I know internally, once upon a time, we did do a Linux build, but that was ages ago. It might still come back, but I can't make any promises. And I know that if the game is getting a lot of traction, if there's a lot of interest and a lot of demand for it, then we'll definitely look into, expanding the platforms.
But how feasible would, consoles and controllers be?
Well, we did map all our basic controls onto controllers. You can actually use them.
Nice.
So we've always been thinking about it as we've been designing the game to be friendly to controllers. It's just not 100% there yet, and it's been in our mind, so we've made sure that we can hopefully support it if it becomes that one day.
Okay. Yeah, could be fun enough. At least as a way of racing to people over on the consoles. The heck did you just do? You just set your spider in attack mode.
I made the physics fight with themselves.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks like it just went insane.
It's still kind of working, though.
In a word, I'd argue that spider just shat itself.
I was going to think it was a great conclusion to the video portion of this.
It kind of turned into a squid.
Exactly.
I was actually just waiting for him to crawl it into the water and see its short circuit, but... Drac, is it about that time?
Yes, and I'm going to let you go with this one this time.
Then you get to do next week.
Okay.
Mike, we have a question that we ask basically everybody. Because now we talk a lot about gaming and games, and your game particularly, and it looks really good, but... this is unfair because you live in Sweden. This is practically impossible for you. Bacon.
Oh, but you're talking to a Canadian who expatted himself to Sweden.
Well, I did notice the boot earlier.
It does tend to slip out from time to time, especially if I start watching Canadian television.
Are you going to say you're sorry about it?
Yeah, it's a character flaw for most Canadians. I apologize.
Yeah, we have a tendency to mock people from Kazakhstan. No. Bacon. How do you like your bacon?
Oh,
what style? How should it be served? And just as importantly, what kind of beverage? And knowing how late it is and you can't run down to the Systembolaget, what kind of alcoholic beverage would you want with your bacon?
Oh, see, this is the thing. I think my all-time favorite has to be from a Canadian YouTuber, and it was the Bacon Weave.
Ooh.
Have you ever heard of the Bacon Weave?
Well, I think Drac has some personal experience with bacon weaves.
I actually, Bam talked me into making a bacon weave for a developer one time, and so they would put bacon in their game. So I actually made a bacon weave and delivered it to somebody here in the San Diego area.
So I'll send you my address after this. I expect one.
What? But then you'd have to put bacon in the game.
If I get myself a bacon weave...
I think we have a challenge here, people.
We do have drone cosmetic items after all. A bacon weave might just be one of them.
Uh-oh.
And now beverage. I mean, if I could, I would find something with maple syrup and alcohol together, if I had to choose.
There is a maple flavored whiskey, I believe.
There is that, and I made the mistake once of getting a maple flavored beer that was infused with bacon and maple syrup, and it sounded great, smelled like breakfast, didn't taste quite right.
Yeah, I got into making my own cider, and I tried to do a bacon-infused one time, and use real bacon, and it kind of tasted like apple-flavored bacon grease. So there's got to be better ways of doing it.
Aren't you glad you asked?
We always like to ask that question.
I think I'll join you for the bacon weave. It's a good thing. You can, instead of doing them flat, you can do like taco bowls and then put stuff into them.
Exactly. It's a base crafting material.
Yeah.
I'm all about that crafting.
Hey, we can tell. But then, maple drinkable.
It was some maple syrup infused, bacon infused beer. It was an odd one.
Doesn't sound good. I'm sorry. I mean, individually, yeah, but no. I think I'll take Drax whiskey instead. That I might be okay with. Or, I mean, I'm told that Canadians drink maple syrup, so...
It's in our blood. It's just there.
Oh, be careful, because then somebody's going to tap you.
Hey, if they replenish my stocks of bacon weaves and maple syrup, I'm a happy camper.
It doesn't take a lot, people. Just the small things in life. Bacon weaves and maple syrup.
The good things.
Yeah. Anyways, Mike, I am sad you couldn't bring Joel. He's apparently busy having an actual life on a Saturday night.
What are those? I mean, I play games.
Yeah. I don't, because I have to do these things. I don't have time to play games.
I say that, but then I work.
Yeah. And we started talking about work-life relations, didn't we? Yeah.
Well, this is my marketing day.
It is. This is marketing. People go and buy the game. Marketing. Your
Soon.
game looks
Wishlist.
amazing. It looks like good fun, and I am annoyed to heck that I don't get to play it right now. Or in the near future. Visually, really nice. I'm just looking at the grass waving back and forth over that matter. Your little drone that flies around smiling. The flexibility in the building, because I think we're all used to you take a block and you take another block and you put them together and done, right? So having that freeform build, I think it's going to do my head in trying to get anything that looks remotely sane, but I think I'm going to have a lot of fun as well. Make explosive components, please. So, when you fail, it gets...
There's always that possibility.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing the structural integrity of bacon weave floor in our cars. I can't say much more than get this game out and get me a review copy. I want a press copy. Oh, I'll get a copy. Don't worry. I'll buy one.
We'll throw you on the list.
That's the best part of this, isn't it? No, because I have too many things I still need to play. I'm a review or two behind because of Gamescom. But it's been amazing. Thank you for coming on. I think Jack's going to talk for a while as well. But really enjoyed this.
Well, G did say most of the things already, but yes, thank you very much for coming on. Thank you for demoing the game and working with our crazy ideas as we went along, because it's fun to see that.
Oh, well, honestly, thanks for having me. Like, we just want to get the word out there. We're super excited. We love what we do. We're really looking forward to getting this into players' hands now.
Yeah. And of course, thank you for being the first guinea pig for this on-camera thing. Where I accidentally shaved before we did this. That was smart.
Babyface G.
Yeah. Babyface.
Now everyone on the podcast is going to be so confused. And especially when they figure out, like, why did he paint his face with the cat emoji? It's just confusing.
Good. We should probably wrap this up because we're coming up on the hour, and poor Bam has to edit this. Hi, Bam. I don't have anything else. Ciao.
Adios.
Bye.
And we can stop the recordings.